that makes you weak. You should have killed me when you had a chance.
Who's more foolish, the fool or the fool who follows him? Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 4 features yet another rescue mission and some good old-fashioned Imperial incompetence. We got some more sass from young Leia, some more scenery chewing from the third sister Reva, and some more Obi-Wan remembering how the Force works. We're gonna break down everything that happened, what it means, and we're gonna get into why the Empire is just so horrible at securing its own facilities. But first, that means spoilers, so if you haven't seen this week's episode, now is the time to submerge yourself in the nearest body of water and hold your breath until we're done.
Is your cover still intact?
We'll find out soon enough. We're wasting time.
Okay, now that we're past the spoiler warning, let's get right to it. Obi-Wan rescues Princess Leia from the bowels of the Inquisitor Fortress with the help of some new rebel friends. Part 4 basically ends in the same place we were at the end of Part 2. Obi-Wan and Leia are still on the run, now in the company of some rebel scum, but the Inquisitor Reva is tracking them using Leia's little droid. At the end of the episode, one rebel is dead. One's cover is blown, and the rest look like they just realized they're in over their heads, but let's back things up and show how things wound up this way. While Obi-Wan soaks in a bacta-tank after Lord Vader literally mopped the floor with him last episode, the third sister whisks Leia off to the Fortress Inquisitorius. This is the home base for the Inquisition, an enormous facility that is mostly below sea level on the aquatic planet of Nur. It might not have much in the way of shields or defenses, but it's in the Mustafar system, which is Vader's turf, so you'd have to be crazy to attack it. And so of course Obi-Wan takes it upon himself to infiltrate this underwater pyramid. And he does so with the help of Tala, who runs interference by walking in the front door in uniform and creating a diversion. How many times have rebels infiltrated Imperial military facilities by just dressing up as an imp? Do we have an exact number on that?
It's high.
Let's get going.
It's very high.
Okay, so maybe I don't want to know. Maybe this time doesn't actually count though, because Tal is actually an Imperial officer moonlighting as a rebel agent. But either way, everyone rags on stormtroopers for being bad shots, but can we just talk about how bad Imperial security is overall? So after getting hassled by the front desk guy at Fortress Inquisitorius, Tala hands over her code cylinders. That's those things that Imperial officers keep in their little pocket protectors, and they're basically USB thumb drives with heavily encrypted security clearance on them. Tala's are legit, but she's out of her jurisdiction, so this front desk guy should bring this to the attention of his supervisor, but instead, Tala pulls rank and does some textbook social engineering, convincing this guy he's gonna be in big trouble if he gets in her way. And really, that's kind of the problem with the Empire. Tarkin's campaign slogan of
Fear will keep the local systems in line.
didn't work in government, and it doesn't really translate to management. If everyone's terrified of their superiors, they're more likely to try to cover up their mistakes than admit to them. After all, look what happened to Captain Nita when he came clean about losing the Falcon. But it's not just the hostile work environment. Imperial security procedures are kind of a wreck too. The Rebel Strike Force was able to get to Endor with what sounds an awful lot like an expired password.
Do they have a code clearance?
It's an older code, sir, but it checks out. I was about to clear them.
If you have to reset your email password, it won't let you use any of your last 5 passwords again. And I know Star Wars moves at the speed of plot, and when Return of the Jedi came out, internet security was just a twinkle in John McAfee's eye. But really, if you built a giant, expensive space station, and then it got doxed and blown up, you'd think that security would be like a little bit tighter on your second, even more giant, even more expensive space station. Just putting that out there. Anyway, Tala talks her way through security and opens a back door for Obi-Wan, who sneaks in to bust out Leia. Tala then distracts Reva by convincing her that she's not a Rebel double agent, but actually an Imperial triple agent, which Reva almost buys. And just when Tala's about to get sent to interrogation to find out for sure if she's lying or not, Obi-Wan and Leia trip the alarm and all hell breaks loose, and a bunch of troops wind up drowned in a flooded hallway. Okay, so I'll buy them sneaking in, but sneaking out? Obi-Wan puts on a hat and a trench coat and hides Leia under it like two kids trying to sneak into an R-rated movie wearing their dad's clothes and sitting on each other's shoulders. You're telling me that none of those stormtroopers thought it was kinda weird while alarms were going off and somebody just blew up a hallway? Well, then again, maybe they did, but they could have been scared of getting executed for insubordination if they were to dare question an Imperial officer on why he was hiding a 10-year-old girl inside his overcoat. Anyway, say what you will about The Last Jedi, this sure as hell makes BB-8's garbage can disguise look a lot more clever, and all I'm saying is this is another classic example of the Imperial military's trash security protocols, and it very nearly cost them Obi-Wan, Tala, and young Leia, were it not for Reva tracking their escape through Leia's droid. Her gamble, of course, is to have the escapees lead the Inquisitors right to a rebel cell. It's a gamble, and it better pay off, or she could be truly in a bad way with her new boss.
You were born what defeat would bring.
I think I've just found out what they're hiding down here.
Of course, the scene that had us pausing our streams a bunch was when Obi-Wan found himself in the belly of the Fortress Inquisitorius, and he found a bunch of dead Force users down there, kind of frozen solid. I say dead because Obi-Wan calls it a tomb, but maybe they're not dead. Maybe they're just frozen in whatever that not carbonite stuff is.
This fossilized tree sap, which we call amber.
Now, any one of these poor unfortunate souls could wind up being very important to the fate of the galaxy, but this was the only one we recognized. That's Jedi Master Tera Sanubi from the Clone Wars. He oversaw the training of many Jedi over his centuries of service, most notably Sifo Dyas and Count Dooku before he turned to the dark side. Also notable was a Jedi Padawan youngling who still had his training helmet on, so if we ever needed an answer to this question...
Master Skywalker, there are too many of them. What are we going to do?
Now we have it. Any younglings who survived Order 66, any Force users at all who survived, wound up here, but for what purpose? Cloning! Keep in mind that at this point in the timeline, the Empire now owns all of the Camino cloning tech and kinda has the cloning market cornered after literally destroying their competition in the finale of The Bad Batch Season 1. If these Force users weren't just personally treated to a dirt nap via Lord Vader or his Inquisitors, then why are they being kept here? Well, Emperor Sheev Palpatine may be alive and well at this point in the story, which we all know isn't permanent. And of course, he has to survive so Poe Dameron could deliver a line like this.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Anyway, until they actually resurrect Emperor Sheev through cloning, you can bet that every captured Force user is going to get their midi-chlorians harvested the way Dr. Pershing tried to harvest Grogu's in The Mandalorian.
I've been wondering, what are midi-chlorians?
Chances are pretty good that Anakin Skywalker fully understands what midi-chlorians are now, but if you don't, why are you watching this video?
Get the back to tank ready.
And of course, here's the part where we run through Easter eggs as quickly as possible.
There's always a bigger fish.
Probably a good thing to keep in mind when you're swimming around at the bottom of an ocean. Also good, one of those handy Jedi rebreathers that we first saw Obi-Wan using when he visited Otoh Gunga on Naboo in The Phantom Menace. Oh, and you don't really have to worry about bigger fish when there are Rathtars about. They're one of those pesky killing machines latched onto the exterior of the fortress as Obi-Wan sneaks in. We first saw a Rathtar wrecking shop on Han Solo's non-Falcon ship in The Force Awakens, eating those dudes from the raid before they could kick anyone in the throat.
They look like that.
Those proby-looking droids patrolling the Inquisitorium are Seeker droids, which you might recall from the Battlefront 2 campaign. Iden Versio's droid companion ID-10, aka the original Dio, is an upgraded model of these guys. The T-47 speeders that swoop in to save the day at the very end are clearly the same model seen taking down AT-ATs in the Battle of Hoth. Most Star Wars fans have been calling these snow speeders for the last 42 years and change, but they're actually not made for snow, and of course there's a line in Empire about the rebels having trouble adapting them to the cold.
Speeder's ready.
Not yet. We're having some trouble adapting them to the cold.
Also, they can hover, apparently. I wish I'd been able to do that in the dozens of Star Wars games where you have to fly circles around Imperial walkers without crashing into their legs. I don't know, maybe it was too cold for the snowspeeders to hover. You might recognize a couple of our new Rebel friends as O'Shea Jackson Jr., aka Ice Cube's son, who played him in Straight Outta Compton, and Maya Erskine, who plays her 13-year-old self in Penis. Sorry, Pen 15, my bad. Obi-Wan's infiltration of the Inquisitorius Gigantus headquarters was reminiscent of him infiltrating the Death Star in A New Hope, and it explains why a crazy old desert hermit knew how to sneak around a heavily guarded Imperial facility in the first place. Oh, and by the way, that is the same fortress we were introduced to in Jedi Fallen Order. Obi-Wan's infiltration gave us a lot of Jedi Fallen Order vibes, and on top of it being the very same base, they even threw in a Purge Trooper like it was going to make a difference against a Jedi Knight. Now again, not to keep harping on it, but if a Jedi Padawan was able to sneak in a few years earlier, you think that maybe they would be able to beef up the security a little bit.
Please! What are you doing to me?
And finally, that torture device they hooked Leia up to is a similar rig to the one that Han got zapped with on Bespin, but this time around, they actually asked some questions. Now here's a question for you. What did you think of Obi-Wan Part 4, and why is the Empire's security just so absolutely awful? And what is the Empire gonna do with a basement full of Jedis in jars? Hit us with your best theories down yonder in the comments below. As always, thank you for watching this episode of Canon Fodder. I'm MaxScoville, and for more Obi-Wan, check out this bit of obscure lore the series brought back into the Star Wars canon, and remember to follow and subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch. May the Force be with you. We'll see you next time.